Welcome everybody. I was really excited actually to get the opportunity to talk about this topic in particular, just like Nicole, and I think probably every single person on this call, it's something that we have tackled or struggled with at some point in time. Oop, am I toggling through? Yes, okay. So this is me. As we said, you can call me Maloney. You can also call me Bones. Bones is a nickname, so feel free to use what you would like. As Nicole said, I've been storytelling professionally. As you can see, this photo is very professional since 2003. And I actually started the Bravery when I was 28, which is probably a second talk in and of itself at another time. But you can join me on that talk every 5:30 on a Friday over a bottle of wine. I'll just send you all the Zoom and we can share some war stories of starting businesses when we're young. But as Nicole said, our agency is born 100% for purpose and for good. And we're trying to use the power of storytelling to make the world a better place. But additionally, this is also me. A slightly less professional version, perhaps, of what you've seen before. And I'm going all a bit Inception on you guys with this photo. I'm a loud mouth within a louder mouth, you know. And it really probably sums up a few things about me, that I'm quite easily distracted and I distract others. That was probably one of the core sort of notes on my report cards throughout primary school and high school. And yeah, probably since birth, let's be honest. But I'm also the queen of procrastination. And I'm going to show you my crown. Listen, guys, it's half done because I've taken my time with it. You know, it's going to be perfect, but I did manage to find a 6 scepter because they're cool, you know. But I think it's important to note this title is self-proclaimed. They said they had to state that moment to you, because I think procrastination is something that is shared probably by about 7.6 billion people on this planet. You are not alone. And today is very much going to be a talk about a safe space and a safe place to explore our procrastinating tendencies. So today we're going to look at procrastination and ask ourselves why we procrastinate. We're also going to bust some myths about procrastination, because there truly are some myths that need to be talked about. We're going to talk about the different types of procrastinators that are out there, and also understand how negative side effects of procrastination rob us of our creativity, and then discover 3 potential frameworks to utilize elements of procrastination for creative good. And just to own straight up, these frameworks and the thoughts that I'm going to share with you today are quite personal. They're sort of my personal philosophy to this topic, and also some different ways of working and different ways of being creative that I've been developing over a period of time. And there's things that I've loved for a while and then ditched them. And I actually think that's a really important part of a creative process, of using the tools that you have in your hands when you need them, and discarding as well, like, you know, old habits and old techniques that you don't need anymore. So, procrastinate. I'd love to hear from all of you. It's a big word, and it's a really loaded word as well. And I'd love for you to all like jump into the chat and tell me that when you hear that word procrastinate, like what are some of the first things that come to mind? And I'm going to try and quickly find my chat section so I can see y'all. Here we go. Shame. Lazy. There are different types. Daily struggle. Baking. Yeah, completely. Lack of self-control. Promise for another day. I've got some for you that I've prepared earlier as well. Put off, pause, hesitate, you know, linger, dawdle. Every time I hear that word, I can hear my grandmother, stop dawdling. You know, play for time, stall, like wait for it, you know, drag it on. And someone said it already in the chat, but this one I have a really particular problem with. It's lazy. You know, could there be any more sort of like, you know, cruel term to use to describe someone or a person or a habit? You know, it's like, but I'd also love for you to kind of give me a round of applause if you've ever used that word for yourself in your own head. Like, give me a Creative Morning spirit hands. Bit weird to applaud yourself about calling yourself lazy, but I think it's some pretty negative stuff actually on this page. And for me, that means there's probably quite a lot of things that you've said to yourself and about yourself that isn't maybe the nicest thing. And I sort of call this trash talk, basically. It's like self-trash talk. And in the immortal words of Ryan Reynolds, but why? Sorry, I love a meme. So as I said, the lame dad jokes, oh, sorry, I know, John, your dad is with us. Just the lame jokes are going to continue. So if we have all of these negative connotations of procrastination, really one of the things that I have sort of pondered and wondered about for a really long time is just like, why do we do it? And why do we do something that is so obviously so bad for ourselves? Well, like most cool things in life, the answer is kind of complicated. You know, researchers have found that procrastination, it actually sort of lives on a spectrum. And, you know, some of us have that kind of like garden variety procrastination, but at the other end, about 1 in 5 of us live with chronic procrastination. And just researchers, like many dozens, the internet, Google is your friend, go and have a look. But this is the way that I would sort of like, I guess, like discuss this spectrum for you guys. Like in one end, we've got, you know, Ferris Bueller, he's taken his day off, you know, it's cool. And that's probably like the happy zone. And then on the other end, we've got the dark side. And it is also one of my personal objectives in life. In every talk or kind of creative campaign I give, I try to have a Star Wars reference. So this is like a really personal moment and tick for me. I know there's a couple of other colleagues on the line here. I think one of them is that to put a lobster in every shoot that she does. So feel free to identify yourself if you dare. But I think this is also, you know, this graph very visually and simply says that the majority of us are procrastinating in really small ways and simple ways that often give us sort of like minor inconveniences. But then there's a smaller group of us that are actually really crippled by it. You know, if we're talking about chronic procrastination, that's a pretty heavy term. And so for the rest of this talk, I just want to highlight that I'm actually going to focus on the majority of us, of where we sit. But before I do that, I do want to give a moment to shine to those 20%ers, those 1 in 5 that are in that chronic procrastination. And just also like have that moment of space of going, it's like if you work in an agency of 5 people or 20 people, you've probably got one sitting next to you. And it doesn't mean they're like that forever as well, which is one of the big myths that I really want to like sort of like bust today. But first is to talk about this. So chronic procrastinators. I love this guy, Professor Joseph Ferrari. He's a 20-year expert in procrastination. One of the things that I love as well about Joseph is he holds an annual procrastinators conference. And I just, the thought of that, of everyone going off to New York, it's like, where are you going, dear? It's like, to my procrastination conference. And I'm like, yeah, that's me like every day, like 10 a.m. every morning. But no, Joseph holds it for the professionals. And basically, he surmises it as it's simply more complex than just putting something off until tomorrow. It's way more complex than that. It's true procrastination is a really complicated approach to how you regulate yourself and how you regulate your time. And it's also a voluntary delay, despite knowing that you might suffer as a result, which is quite probably a sort of a bit of a crippling way for some people to live. But also it's an inability to manage people's emotions at their very foundation. So how I feel about doing a task, how it makes me feel. And I think this quote is so interesting because we talk so much about mental health and we talk about, particularly in creative industries, like, you know, depression, anxiety, we even talk about addiction. If you said to someone that I was suffering from chronic procrastination, not to get all like serious with you guys, like so early in the morning, but I think this quote is so important. To tell a chronic procrastinator to just do it would be like saying to a clinically depressed person, just to cheer up. And for me, that really says a couple of things that I also just want to acknowledge. For if you're in a 20%er, if you're someone as well that feels actually like this is a thing that's starting to like mess around with your life, you know, if you're falling into that dark side, you know, go around to your networks, like, you know, do the things that you need to do and like see if there's some things that you can do about it. But know as well that like today is a very like safe place. You can own your darkest procrastinating self and, you know, even tell us some stories in the chat of like, you know, maybe your most, darkest journey to procrastination, if you feel safe to share. So to the rest of us though, the 4 in 5, why does Ferris Bueller take the day off? Well, again, researchers believe why we procrastinate falls into a few different categories. The first is expectancy. So we expect we're not going to achieve the value of what we're trying to achieve. This other one, value. So we have a lack of value associated with that thing that we're trying to do. It doesn't seem important to me. We've then got time. So the value of what we're going to do is like way too far ahead in terms of time. We can't really grasp why we need to do it because it's like so far down the road. And then this one, my favorite, is impulsivity. I couldn't find an icon for impulsivity. So you are Easter eggs today. That is just what's happening. And it's because you're basically, you're very impulsive in terms of your personality trait. And I've got to be honest with you guys, maybe you're already picking up a bit of my vibe of who I am as a person, but I think I'm probably in that latter category. But please jump into the chat and tell us which one across value base or expectancy or time, or if you're an egg, put it into the chat. You might be all 3, all 4, you might be 2, you might be none. There might be another reason why you think you procrastinate. And again, these researchers, there are many dozens, they're on the internet. I'm making this a very uncredentialed talk. But does it matter? Well, sort of, does it really matter that you're an impulsive little egg? Like, kind of, yeah, is the answer to that, because procrastination also has a cool, few fun friends that it brings along for the ride. A bit of self-criticism, stress, particularly if you're within the time-based category and you might leave things to the very end, a bit of the thrill of the ride. That means you're living in a really adrenal headspace the whole time in your life. That actually brings stress. It brings excitement, a bit of Tom Cruising Top Gun style to your life, but it also does bring a bit of stress. It also can bring some non-optimal performance, some bad sleep, and lack of mental capacity. And for me, this is the one that, particularly for creative people, we might experience all those other 4 things within an average day anyway. But if you are constantly living in a cycle of having your tasks chasing you and also putting them off, what you're actually doing is you're robbing your mind of free air and free oxygen to think about other things and maybe think about things in a different way that you'd like to think about them. And as creative people, we're always searching for that oxygen, for that clear air, that free space, that moment of where you can just be in your thoughts and see where they take you. So, as was said, the kicker here, sorry, I've got to get my Elaine Bennis gif rolling. The kicker. It's not a hard and fast rule, but like most things in your life, you won't be doing your best work if you're stressed. And it's really hard to be innovative and also optimistic, two fundamental traits of creativity, if you are stressed all the time. So what can we do about it? Well, remember these categories. It depends, as a launching point, I think it depends on what kind of procrastinator you are. And I know some of you have started to put it in the chat. Yeah, I feel like I've dated myself. Someone said Seinfeld memes. I'm like, I've had Ferris Bueller, Star Wars, and Seinfeld, but they're eternal, right? But these different categories here are the launching point of working out why you are procrastinating and what you can do about it. You'll need to spend some good old quality time with yourself and also working out how and why you do certain things, activating that creative brain of yours to come up with some solutions about, why you might be procrastinating within your different kind of category. But this does come with a warning. And even though Google and the internet is our friend, Dr. Google or Psych Google or Productivity Google, I think can also be a bit of a nightmare. The internet actually comes up with over 10 million search hits of how to stop procrastinating. And a large proportion of these, when you have a look at them, are actually around those two things that we talked about before, increasing your productivity and time management. And as we've already had a look at, these are actually myth solutions to procrastination. if you just try to get on with it, for some of us, it's going to make it worse. And also, if you just constantly try to reframe how you manage your time over and over again, trying different systems and different processes and to-do lists over there and, you know, Trellos and whatever in other places, like throwing endless systems of time management at yourself may actually slow you down even further. So then it becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy. So rather, instead of like stemming the bleeding after the wound has already been created, you know, you might want to actually see if you can find some different ways to utilize some of the elements and characteristics of procrastination for better. And so with that, here are my 3 ideas that I'm going to take you through about procrastination and some different frameworks that you might have a think about using. So procrastination for good, idea 1. And please as well keep interacting with me on the chat. I can see all of your amazing comments. The realest truth, yes. Do you find yourself sometimes like staring off into space? Are you a bit of a dreamer? You know, do you wander around the house aimlessly, sort of mindlessly, like you kind of feel like you're actually doing nothing? You know, it might be sort of like, I'm going to rearrange the cutlery drawer. That has been my favorite thing. Or, oh, and my bathroom like cupboard is another one that I do. Lots of them are sort of cleaning based. Sometimes I'll pick a Anthony Bourdain recipe that I even just like, it's a 3-day recipe. I don't even end up making it or doing the shopping, but I just read it and I fantasize about what it would be like. But then after that mindless moment is over, cue the beat up over not getting XYZ done of what you thought you should do. But the question that I've been wondering is, what if you are, during those times, unconsciously accessing a creative space in your mind simply by doing the act of, well, nothing, and also not the thing that you think you should be doing? So this idea is what I call the freewheeling mind. And I know there are a lot of members of my team members on this call, and they can probably attest to what it's like to work with someone who spends probably 80% of her time in the freewheeling mind space in terms of work and chat and conversation. And it's a bit of a different place to live in. It's a bit of a wild place. But it really asks the question of what would happen if we just stopped and just like daydreamed. And this amazing woman, who I strongly encourage you to all go online and have a look at. Her name's Dr. Fiona Kerr. She's actually an Australian neuroscientist. And basically what she thinks is that, you know, we should go about like, you know, giving up like, you know, the acts of sort of the criticisms that are leveled at ourselves as procrastinators. And I think her theory is really smart and it's really simple, but she's found through her research that the simple act of looking up and looking out, so literally the 2 physical things you do when you daydream, you might look up and like think about things, you look out onto the horizon. She thinks that they can change everything in terms of how your brain works, how it creates things, how it relates to other people, and how it actually even chemically functions. So she's got an amazing sort of like theory here, but she says, when we look up and out, we enter the state of abstraction or daydreaming, conducive for creative concepts, complex problem solving, and new insights in those aha moments. Our brain puts information together in new ways to find solutions. And we actually get better at thinking. And this is not theoretical. Like Fiona's research, you can jump online, you can Google her. We all have the smartphones in our pockets. But she has actually like, okay, I'm not a scientist, so this is going to sound so stupid. But she has like strapped, you know, machines, electrodes to people's brains and studied their chemistry. And she has literally done studies where she's gotten people to look up and out, and she's been able to show chemically the changes that happen in people's brains. And one of the most amazing things that she found is that you actually make new neurological connections. So you're literally creating new highways in your mind for your information to flow better, faster, stronger. And I just think that is so incredible. And so I'd sort of ask you guys, like, when is the last time you just stopped and just thought about things, like lay down on the grass and stared at the sky, and really actually as well, like looked right out onto that far horizon and just expanded your mind about the future. And this is going to sound like a funny one because it might come to you in all kinds of different places. But for me, like I have a lot of hair, obviously. And when I am washing my hair in the shower and like looking up, it was, as a small business owner and as an agency director, it was one of the few times that I was even having like a break in my day from, you know, doing different things, to the point that so many ideas were coming through to me in the shower. In the place that I used to live in, I had a bigger bathroom. I had a little whiteboard at the end of my shower to be like, run over, get the pen and like write the ideas down. Because I think with the day-to-day work that we're doing and the amount of hours that we're trying to, you know, output every day, we're not giving ourselves those moments of sort of freewheeling solitude where those solutions and those different ideas will come through. And I have to do a huge thank you to the creative powerhouse, Lecky Mays from Glider Studio, for introducing me to Fiona's work. Yeah, it's really been hugely transformative in terms of how I do my work, and also how I try to encourage work with the team. Like, it's not just a simple thing of getting out of the house and going for an exercise. Like, look out onto the horizon, look as far as you can see, and just think about nothing and see where your mind takes you. So idea 2, obviously everyone experiences time differently. These 3 little symbols here are the way that I try to sort of explain to people how some people think about time. So some people think of it as like a linear construct. It's like one end to the other, that is time. For other people, time is bendy, you know, it moves faster, it moves more slowly, and they also can lose track of time. And for other people, time is almost like a fuzzy circular sort of logic to it. You know, they feel like they see patterns and things repeating, and it's, no one experiences it the same way. And I think you have to really lean into yourself about time to work out how to tackle like your procrastinating abilities for better creativity. So even though I said creativity originally at the beginning of this presentation wasn't about time, like I lied to you a little bit, just a little bit. It is a bit about time. You've got to lean into your best daily self, and also, you know, potentially also expand that help out to other people around you if they're also struggling with some different procrastination elements, because you have to radically accept this concept that everyone, you know, perceives and uses time slightly differently. But in a combination with that, it's also about how our energy levels change throughout the day, and that is different for everyone else as well. So this chart, there's like a million of these again, like online, because I got very interested in energy and energy output for a long time, and I was studying different ideas that people had about energy. And this is only one interpretation of energy levels throughout the day, and it will change also throughout your life depending on what you're doing. But for me, I had to really sit with this concept that energy changes, and also how you perceive that energy in the time of your day also changes. I needed to assess my energy levels, about where I thought it sat, and also what different factors were impacting them. And then I basically, for about 3 years, I tested the heck out of a range of different ways of working to be more creative, but to also give myself time to really deeply dive. And for me, where that ended up landing is morning method. Now, there's many different ways to look at this. People call it, there's something really lame. It's like the morning miracle, which is just like not my, it's not my vibe. So I'm like, morning method. That sounds like something I can kind of hold in my hands. So what's the morning method? Basically, well, firstly, unsurprisingly, you get up very early. I acknowledge that this is not going to be possible for everyone. People have all kinds of different things going on in their lives, family, or like, you know, working, like, you know, shift work and things like that. But this, for me, running my own business, I don't have a family. And through all of my sort of biohacking of my day, for me, this worked the best for me over those like 2-3 years of trying to work this thing out. So For me, it was the acknowledgement that I needed to set myself just one task and one thing, but I have to dive into it really deeply. I'm the kind of creative that gets really lost in tasks and thoughts and insight gathering. And as I said, living in that freewheeling mind. And I was finding if I did that work in the middle of the day on my one task, I'm just like, you know, Slack's going off, text messages, like different notifications, emails. I was finding the process incredibly frustrating. So, and I wasn't going to be able to do it late at night. You know, it's exhausting. I don't want to go back into those creative tasks. So you have to give yourself the space to actually do this thing, but you have to have a hard stop, particularly if you're a bit like me and you go into that sort of like freewheeling space quite easily and you go down the rabbit hole. And you also have to turn off all your interruptions. One of the best things I ever did is switch off every single notification on my phone. It probably drove Nicole a little bit crazy trying to get a hold of me for this talk. She's like, why is she not, you know? But it's like, as a publicist, it also seems crazy to be like, I don't have text messages turned on anymore. I just don't. I'll check my phone when I'm ready to check my phone. And journalists have other ways that they can contact me if they need to. They have other people. And that's the thing as well. Like, we make ourselves very available. And then we sit there at the end of the day and we beat ourselves up about, well, why did I go and do that? And that wasn't the most important thing. And you could probably actually argue, oh, maybe I procrastinated and got distracted and I shouldn't have done my bigger task. But I'm like, you're also not setting yourself up for success if you don't switch off all of that noise. And I just also want to get real here. That is actually morning method, guys. It's not the image I showed you before of the beautiful sunrise. It is a person sitting at their laptop in the dark at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so it's not for everyone. I'm also not a morning person, but I've found this has started to work for me. And I also just want to be clear, I don't do it every day. Idea number 3. So this is also a bit of an interesting theory about the procrastination cycle. And it kind of goes back to some of those really negative words and that negative trash talk that you say about yourself and how procrastination actually makes you feel in your mind. And these words, for many of us, if we actually think about it, they probably land in 3 key categories: should, could, and would. So I would also say, ask yourself, when's the last time you've said to yourself when you're doing something else, oh, I should be doing X? And when have you asked yourself at the end of doing something else, oh, I could have done blah, or I would be in a better place if? And these words basically leave us landing in this little chart here, the sort of like final stage of procrastination, which is like the making excuses or asking yourself why. But what this little image here, what it doesn't show you is what it actually leaves you with. And it leaves you with a feeling of regret. It leaves you with a feeling of regret of how you've used your time. And that then leads me to basically my final framework of what I use probably daily. And again, just like daydreaming, I actually think this word and also what actually is associated with it is also a radical act. And particularly for creatives, we're so self-critical, you know, about every little bit that we do to try to make ourselves better at what we do. But forgiveness is really crucial. And so this is another incredible academic in this space. Look at her hair. She's so wild. And her name, Dr. Fuchsia Sirioth. She basically believes that to counteract the negative aspects of procrastination, you have to show yourself kindness and understanding. And I love this quote from her. So like just sort of recognizing that, yeah, maybe I screwed up and maybe I could have started earlier, but I don't need to beat myself up about it. Learn, obviously, but it's like, tell yourself, I'm not the first person to procrastinate. I won't be the last. And research, this is what I love. Her research, of which she's done for like 25 years, shows that if you actually give yourself kindness and forgiveness, it increases your motivation to improve yourself. A lot of people think that if you forgive yourself for not doing the right thing, you're giving yourself that free pass. Oh, you know, it doesn't matter, blah, blah. No, you've got to be real with yourself, but you've also got to find those moments of forgiveness. And so the simplest way that you can do this is with this beautiful like sentence, which instead of I should do, I could have done, or I would have got to, you get to say instead, I get to do this thing. So rather than walking into a moment of distraction or freewheeling mind of going, oh, but I should really be doing that budget sheet or whatever the thing is that you don't want to do, you get to say to yourself instead, I get to bake that cake, and I get to go for that talk, and I get to stare at the clouds. You know, I get to do that strategic plan tomorrow morning. It'll still make the deadline. But right now, I also get to watch that movie. So just this simple word of also saying that you can give something to yourself is, again, actually a radical act of kindness and forgiveness. And as we know, for creatives, the moment that you do that, it's absolutely fundamentally going to change how you feel about yourself, and moving away from living in an environment of regret and moving into an environment of high performance. And, you know, it really as well just sums up that you're not a machine. Moving into positive frames are actually going to take, you know, any of the creative sapping elements of shame, guilt, and trash talk away. Just by saying, I get to do something, it can actually completely set you free. And this lovely statement, my team also hears me say this a lot, everything is going to work out just fine. Don't beat yourself up. And so with that, oh, Nicole, I'm pretty much right on time, like literally 30 minutes. So I'm going to do a quick recap for y'all. Know your procrastination whys and the myths. Do understand where you are on that procrastination spectrum. Try to stay in the upper level of Ferris Bueller and not into the Darth Vader dark side. Know that internal trash talk is going to rob you of your creativity if you are trashing yourself about your procrastination habits. Deeply learn and understand your time and energy and how you perceive it, and explore any of these frameworks that might be good for you. As I said, like I sat there and kind of hacked away at this for like 2-3 years, and this is just for now. It's going to change again. And then these free concepts, so the freewheeling mind, the morning method, and also forgiveness. And with that, I'm going to go to questions. I also just like reflections and comments and like shared experiences. And I also just want to be super clear, like I'm not clearly a psychological or academic expert in this space, but I have a very curious mind, which is part of my creative mind. And yeah, I've been reading about this stuff, but come at me with your questions because I'm ready.
Woohoo! Guys, give Claire some jazz hands, round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was epic. Claire, can you unshare your screen, please? Amazing.
Did that work? Oh, I can't find you.
Fantastic. Okay. Oh, you can't find me? I'm here.
Hang on, I'm back. I'm back.
There you are. Yeah, guys, give Claire some love in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for that very thoughtful talk. And I loved it because basically you were just giving us all a really nice way to look at procrastination, which has always been a really horrible thing. I personally think that very positive things can come from procrastination. So when I was in high school, my dad, who is on the line, hi Dad, it's his birthday today, I know, happy birthday Dad. Dad is an engineer, so he knows how to do all this like crazy stuff, and he actually drilled a lock into the TV, so I couldn't watch TV. And so I had to be in my room studying for the school certificate in year 10, and I taught myself guitar, and like I now play guitar, but it's literally because of procrastination. So I've always thought that procrastination can lead to a lot of positive things as well. Though, I mean, but I'm a serial procrastinator. So, you know, I guess there's a balance. But anyway, yeah. Claire, so I mean, I'm going to start this question thing for you. So that was my example. Like, do you have a positive outcome that's come from you procrastinating where you're like, wow, like I procrastinated by doing something that was actually really positive?
It does go back to one of the frameworks, and it's always the freewheeling mind. Every time. There is never ever a time that I ever, and it is often going out into nature as well. There's elements to that too, but like I'm very lucky with my desk, like when I'm normally at work, We work in Surrey Hills on Chalmers Street, just up from Central Station, if anyone's familiar with that area. And I feel like I have the best desk in Sydney because I look out onto the park and the pool. And I just spend a lot of time like people watching, not to sound like a creeper, 116 Chalmers Street, level 1, she's a creeper. But yeah, just also I like to look right out because I get this beautiful view across the city and I get to look out into the horizon and I look at the buildings. And again, this is just a bit of my storytelling kind of brain and how it works, when I make up little stories and ideas about people. And then all of a sudden I will sit there and it happens so intuitively. Like it might be 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, that knotty problem that I've been trying to unpack, or that idea that I've been trying to get to, and and also getting through all the kind of like the crap to get to the good idea, I finally get to it. And I think if you actually start a truly sort of daily practice of the looking out and up, now that I've probably actually said it to quite a lot of people, there's probably so many people on this talk that realize that they do that anyway, but they didn't have a name for it, and they didn't have fancy Dr. Fiona Kerr to say, oh yeah, there's like a whole entire scientific reason as to why that's so great for you. But every time it's the daydreaming, staring at the clouds. Like if you think about that as well, like the playfulness of that, when is the last time you've actually stared at clouds? It's like, there's something really innocent in it. You end up in this really sort of innocent space again and feeling very connected to the world, and actually really connected and grounded within yourself, which I think is also quite a hard practice to have. And particularly with lockdown and, the pandemic and different changes of work, it's like everyone knows where you are. They expect you to be here. They know you're at your desk. It's like, can you imagine if you said to like your boss, I'm going to go daydream and look at the clouds for half an hour, but just you wait, like I'm going to come back with all these like sick ideas.
Yeah.
They're going to think you're
crazy. But that should be like a legitimate break. Like people will go and say, oh, I've got to go and have a cigarette break. But like a daydream break, that should be like a thing. I love that.
Exactly.
I'm going to take that on. Claire, we've got a question here from Helen. And then also, guys, I may have told you the wrong thing. So I think it's like if you click the reactions, you can find the little raise handy thing. So if you have a question, yeah, cool. So Luke, I saw you just raised your hand too, so we'll get to you. But Helen, unmute yourself, or here, I think I have to do it. Can you do it, Helen?
Yay, I have.
There you are. Okay. Claire, this is Helen. This is Claire. So Helen, what's your question?
Hey Claire, thank you so much. I related to everything you said in that, presentation. I wanted to ask, so how do you, especially say with clients and when you have a lot of responsibility, how do you sort of own up to your procrastination? And when you can't, what's the best excuse you've kind of come up with as a bit of a like the clouds?
Oh God.
Like, what's your best one?
Oh no, I can see my team on here. Can please tell what my best excuse has been. Honesty is always the best answer. And this is a really hard one because I wasn't in agency before I started the Bravery for about 5 years. I actually was in-house, and then I set up the Bravery, and I wanted it to be a kind of a bit of a different, I mean, everyone wants their agency to be different, right? But it's like I wanted it to be something where we also could break down some of those really traditional structures. And the biggest one for me is the brief, 2 weeks of creative ideation, get it back, which all of us know. And you're lucky if you get those 2 weeks. Sometimes it's like one. And I think it's actually to own up to what is essentially, I guess, not procrastination, but to me, it's almost like I have not been able to complete this task because it is either more complex or I need more time on it. Again, this thing of time to actually think and marinate. So to try and break that and stop that from having and like meet the deadlines, it's not like rocket science. So many different people within their own practices will understand this, but we have a mandatory rule at the agency. The day the brief comes in, you read the brief. And even if you don't touch it again for another week, the stuff that is happening in the back of your mind, suddenly you've like framed whatever your task is that you need to do, and you are unconsciously picking up little ideas and things all around you without even realizing it. Like, your brain is really smart. You just need to give it, again, that oxygen and that space. But the excuse that I say, and it's not an excuse, I pick up the phone, and you've just got to give them enough notice, obviously, but I just go, I need more time. Like, if it's not a time-bound critical brief and they're wanting a creative idea, like, you have to sometimes ask for more time. And I'm like, who came up with 2 weeks? This is such an arbitrary rule. You know, it's like 2 weeks, that seems reasonable, right? I'm like, sometimes not, mate. You're wanting to change the world and like tackle climate change. Like, we might need a little more time, you know? So that's how I approach it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that question. And now, Luke, I'm going to unmute you. Or maybe you can do it. Where's Luke?
Hey.
Hi.
Go
Thanks
for
the
it, Luke.
awesome talk.
Ask your question.
Yeah, my question's about kind of positive forms of procrastination. So you mentioned one, which is kind of freewheeling or daydreaming. So this is a way to use procrastination for good. Another one that I like live by completely is procrastinating. Props Jessica Hish, awesome designer. I'm sure she's given a Creative Mornings talk at some point. I'll post a link. Procrastinating.
Yeah.
So you get sick of your main projects, so you put off that by working on your secondary projects.
Oh, your side hustles.
Yeah, my whole career is founded on this. So I was wondering if you have any other examples of like good procrastination techniques.
I'm not meaning to sound like some sappy woke purist or any stuff, but honestly, it's giving to other people. So I find that there is always probably somebody out there that has sent you an email wanting to, you know, that sort of terrible term, like pick your brain, or someone that has a problem that they might need help with, or you've got an emergent creative that needs some mentoring. If you were really going to like stop, drop and roll on a task and, you know, make it something as well that you can feel good about, it's definitely picking up that phone, responding to that email, like, you know, having that coffee with that person and that session. Like, you are never going to walk away from that being like, well, if you do go, I should have or could have, or, you know, would have done something else if I had not done that. You could just be like, well, I just got to have an amazing conversation with that person. I just got to give someone a solution. I just got to, like, you know, expand out my network and things like that. And so for me, it's always about connecting in with others and finding ways that you can help them, because otherwise all of mine are food-based. And I put on like the COVID-10 last lockdown. I'm learning how to make bagels and things like that. So I don't want to end up there again. So I'm trying to make mine a bit more cerebral rather than calorific. Yes, I can send a bagel recipe. Yes.
Awesome question, Luke. Thank you for that. So that's it for questions. I did want to read a beautiful comment that Renee wrote in the chat. She wrote, someone once told me, every time you look at the clouds, remember that you'll never see them in that exact formation again. And then she wrote, I love this, can step out of oneself and appreciate the moment and the beauty rather than just clouds. Oh, that's super nice. That's beautiful. Thank you, Renee. And so what we're going to do before we finish up is we're just going to cross back to Bill and check out what creation he's been doing. So Claire, you're going to love this because you're going to literally just see your talk but in words. Bill, take it away.
Hey everyone, I hope you can all hear me. Thank you so much for the talk. It's been really awesome. So I'll just quickly go through my drawing here that I've been working on while it's all been going on. So yeah, again, we started off with Tiago with his some of his beautiful music. We had the Side Hustle 60 with Bam Bam Hats and the Tall Poppy movie, which sounds amazing. And then after that, we went on to Claire's talk. So she started off just talking about the Bravery and how she got started, talking about her personal philosophy of procrastination, this concept of sort of self-trash talk, maybe the darker side of procrastination, taking something of a sort of mental health lens approach to it, talking about maybe why we do it and some of the stresses and emotional states it brings. and then sort of asking that question of what kind of procrastinator are you and how we can address it. And then she took us through her 3 frameworks. So procrastination for good, that freewheeling mind, the idea of look up and look out. And then Photoshop froze.